Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbos, Parshas Pinchas. It's seemingly a very simple idea, but it's one of the issues that boggles Moses' mind. We have the issue of the second Passover a couple of weeks ago, where the Jews who were not, who were in Tamei L'Nefesh, they were impure at the time. That was a very challenging thing. How do we make another holiday for these Jews that were impure at the time? And God says you can make a second Passover. But the dilemma in this week's Parsha does not seem very complicated. And that is, at the time, as tribalism is very much inherited from our father, our Jewish identity is inherited from our mother. If we're Jewish, it depends if our mother is Jewish. But our tribalism, if we're a Kohen or a Levi or an Israelite, if we come from Reuven, Shimon, Levi, that comes from our father. And so, at the time, because this way the structure of the land of Israel was split up, it was given to each tribal area, and the only way to continue that in the family was by, as tribes would intermarry, is by continuing to give it into the tribe, the husband. But there came a dilemma. The dilemma was there was 5 daughters, and these 5 daughters didn't have any brothers. And so they come to Moses, and the daughters of Tzalachad, they come to Moses and say, "What should we do? We don't have any brothers. How can we not keep this family land in our family?" And to this Moses says, "Let me go and ask God." God comes back and gives seemingly a very simple answer. The obvious answer: if there are no sons, give it to the daughters. And so Moses has to go and ask this question, which me and you, we all know this answer. If there's no sons, give it to the daughters. And at this point, really, even though it was a transformational idea at the time, because women didn't have any rights, the Torah was the first one to give women rights from the contract of the Ketubah, and the marriage contract, which gave women rights at the time. Unfortunately, women had no rights at the time, 2,500 years ago. But nevertheless, it was a seemingly simple answer. The Torah valued the Jewish women as the Akeres Abayis, the foundation of the home. But the answer and the nuance of the details of why it was specifically went to inheritance of the men who were dealing with the properties versus the women. But the answer was probably is a very simple answer. There are no husbands, there were no boys. Give it to the girls, and God does, and gives, and God says that, and Moses comes back and gives that the answer. So the rabbis have a challenge with this. Why is it that Moses has to ask this question? Moses was the most brilliant scholar. He dealt with every situation, every major situation. He was ultimately the Supreme Court, and this is a simple answer that anyone can give. There's no boys, give it to the girls. And so the rabbis discuss this idea and seemingly find that there's a dilemma that Moses has. The dilemma that Moses has is that Moses has his own sons, and they are not inheriting anything, because Moses is the leader. He's the leader of the community, and his sons barely mentioned. The next leadership will go to Joshua, and so this was his moment where he has internal conflict, and he really is not just asking for the daughters of Tzalachad, but he's really asking for himself. Why is it that my own children will not inherit? They will not become the leaders of the Jewish people. And to this, the rabbis explain that Moses' sons were somewhat left out, or there's an idea they were left out from being the next leaders because they could not be a leader of the Jewish people, because they did not have the same challenges that all the Jewish people had. They weren't there in Egypt. Moses was protecting them from being there in Egypt. They weren't there by the 10 plagues. They weren't there by the splitting of the sea. They were in Midian. They stayed with their mother to be protected. And by Moses protecting those children, protecting those sons, and not exposing them to the world's reality, he protected them, but in a certain sense, they could not be the future leaders because they did not have that same sympathy to the Jewish people of those who were there by the desert, those who were there by the splitting of the sea, those who were there by the slavery in Egypt. And so it teaches something very powerful. Sometimes we're very overprotective of our children. We don't want to expose them to certain realities of the world. And the reality is that bringing them to a Jewish school, bringing them to shul, bringing them involved in the Jewish community, and bringing them involved in Judaism is only going to enhance them, showing them that Judaism on the outside, not to be afraid of who we are as a Jew. Of course, thank God we live in a very safe place in the world. But nevertheless, this idea of exposing our children in a positive way to Judaism and to the world and how it's proud we are to be Jewish, and how proud we are of our land of Israel, and how proud we are not to be worried about what people are going to think. That is very important for us. That's how we grow the next leaders of the Jewish people. With Moses, he protected his children, but from that protection, ultimately, he stopped them from being the future of Jewish leadership. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll see you tonight at 6:45, tomorrow at 10:15.